Hi, my name is Zachary Anderlot, and I just wanted to go over changes that I made to my Gollemer project. Um, I kind of changed everything completely and utterly. It may not work on Linux right now, because I have it going through my Windows machine. Um, I'll fix it later for Linux as well, because I have other disks. But the reason why I did this was because I wanted to make sure it worked on Windows too, but I also uh, more or less wanted to use my hardware, especially my GPU, and it kind of does that. Um, and I also wanted to take a bigger slice of the pie with a lot better CPU and a lot more RAM and so on and so forth, as opposed to my Chromebook that didn't have a GPU and had only 8 gigs of RAM, and the CPU isn't all that much. i3, but I don't know the i3 version. Anyways, why do this? Mainly because the training wasn't really equating to anything, and maybe if I would have left it on for months, it may have equated to maybe making a sentence. With having or utilizing the extra hardware just to make the model, not the chat itself doesn't take anything that you could run on your phone even, but the training of the model, obviously you want a little more power so that it can actually form a sentence somewhat, or try to, or something. And I also did add in some dependencies, because I was just trying to take advantage of the GPU. But anyways, to kind of show, as you could tell, it's the certain words that it tries to predict. It predicts the intent. It makes like kind of a sentence, sorta. At least some that's a little more viable. And then it's got the intent predicted stuff. If you do like, did you fish? It's not trained on anything that has anything to do with fishing. It's just trained on stuff having to do with computers. But as you can tell, it's like it again tries to guess the intent and everything. Even if it's not within any kind of responses, it obviously isn't gonna do too much with that. The monitor check has something to do with what should I do, sort of, as far as words that it tries to predict. As you can tell, the generated stuff, like the purely generated stuff, is getting a bit better, and that's I didn't train it, and then like leave it on all day. But with the dependencies and the extra hardware, you're talking like a magnitude of 50 to 100 times better training. Um, yeah, and you're talking from 30 hours an epoch, because I was able to branch out the parameters to about 700,000 or 700 million. Doesn't mean it's as smart as you can see loaded 7 mono compressed. As you can tell, it's not quite as good as like ChatGPT 3 or whatever, but it's definitely on its own, with very little training data and very little training, getting a lot closer just on its own. Not this intent predicted response that's kind of pre-made. You obviously are going to want to use both, but having something that can really begin to understand grammar and stuff you don't have to program as much once you can get it to begin to really understand things. And that to me is kind of the ultimate goal in doing it just on my Chromebook. I would really have to. I don't even know if I'd ever get there. I mean, because I was able to take the parameters of the learning model and expand it, like triple it, and then I was able to take the time it takes to train that big of a model down to like 1 hour per epoch, if that. And I was able to utilize my GPU, but I did have to use some dependencies, and some of them are kind of left over that I just gotta get rid of, but some of them I'm definitely utilizing the hell out of. Some of this stuff is just because of web server stuff that generates code, so don't worry about that. Where is it? These are kind of like subsidiary dependencies. Again, I'm guessing a lot of these I can get rid of, especially if I get rid of the generating the code part. It's notified. It's not. What was the name of that framework that I was? Yeah, well, GoNum. I didn't want to use GoNum. I was really fighting really hard not to use that. But when it came to the GPU, it was not going to happen. I even tried to have Gemini help me, and it was running past its token. It was going for like 2 hours trying to write crazy GPU code. I didn't really realize GPU programming is a completely different kind of programming. You're using another piece of hardware, and a piece of hardware it doesn't. The interfacing for is not too kind to the Go standard library, and so it was writing all these like memory pointers and everything. I left it on for like 2 hours because it wasn't running out of tokens. It was like saying that it was really in depth trying to figure this out, and it still couldn't figure it out. And the code it was writing was just ridiculous. It wasn't that readable. It was just like lists of memory pointers and everything. Like I was trying to do it from scratch without any dependencies, and that's not. But it was also doing it specifically to my GPU, and which is what was it? Radeon RX 6600. So it's like old, but whatever. I wasn't gonna let it do that because it wasn't even doing it right. So, and I'm not gonna do GPU programming because the standard library just has nothing to do with it. So then I came across. Well, actually, I'd come across. I forgot the name of it. It was like WGPU, like Go WGPU, something like that. But it was using CGO and using these .dll files, and there was Rust in the DLL files, and it was just like spitting out stuff. And you needed the C++ compile, and I was just like, I'm not dealing with this. Like I'm not. This is nasty. It's 2026. Like, what are we doing? Maybe some programming people will take offense to that comment, but if you want to spend 20 hours on a config or whatever, yeah, go right ahead. I'm not. I just want this thing to learn how to write sentences. I don't care that much. So I found this person's library, and but it's really nice. It's just pure Go, and it writes stuff to the GPU, and that's something. It really is something. What was it? Let me get rid of this. doing that. And it's somewhat still being worked on. Only 2 contributors though, but these 2 people, pretty amazing stuff. Yeah, and I like how they're like, this is why we did it, because it's ridiculous otherwise. And it is. It is. When you're doing GPU programming, it is. Straight up. And not that I wasn't totally used to dealing with dependencies and the C++ compiler dependency and everything, but you're just getting so into the weeds and away from your actual project that it's not worth it. So these guys' dependency, it I mean, it's ridiculous, the difference between trying to program on a GPU from scratch to using these guys' framework. I mean, and so, but yeah, you do have to kind of think about it as, for some reason I thought, well, I'm not going to like get a container with a GPU, but then I was like, well, I'm not going to train something on a cloud-based thing. Like, that would be ridiculous. I'm sure they have them, and I'm sure somewhere, somehow, they're a bit cheaper, but I don't have that kind of money, especially when I'm still trying to make a sentence. But yeah, that was sort of my journey with all of that. And there was another dependency, somewhat a P. I don't remember a name. That was a frame, but it was using that CGO and all that. And then, no, I'm not dealing with all that. And yeah, this dependency is not going to get replaced probably. I mean, it's just unless someone comes out with something else. And this one is probably going to stay too, because boy, did it shrink it. It uses assembly code and all that, but there's no dependencies I had seen that I needed or cared about. So, yeah, in order to actually make it form a sentence, you're going to need those 2 dependencies and the hardware. I mean, that's just, unless your program's going to be an intent guessing program, which is fine, whatever. You just add the training data, the intent, and it'll do all the things that you need it probably to do. It just won't cover any kind of oddball cases, which is fine. But this was just I guess the original point of the project with the NLP tagger and all that was really to guess intent. But that's the kicker, is either you pay for the cost now or you pay for the cost later as far as guessing intent, right? I mean, unless you're doing bare basic stuff, either you're going to work at trying to make an actual model that predicts sentences, or you're going to have some that kind of fakes it out a little. Not that there's anything wrong with that. At the end of the day, if it does what you need it to do, that's what matters. But for me personally, I want this to get it down to the point at which I don't have to keep programming all this intent guessing stuff, But yeah, but all the code probably changed. So it may not work right now on Linux that well. I'll change that in the future, obviously. But yeah, I just wanted to, to run the training. You just run the bash space scripts /train.sh, and it'll go through all this stuff. Now it'll use up your GPU and a good portion of your CPU and your RAM, so that'll probably slow down this video quite a bit. But it's also training a ridiculous amount of stuff. But yeah, so So yeah, I kind of changed everything on the fly, sort of. It was just to make it so that future programming isn't such a nightmare, and it's a little more robust, a lot more robust, or will be. And but yeah, at the cost of dependencies. I was a little mad. I was a little mad when I found out you can't just do it on a Chromebook. I was a little mad. Um, because I was like, well, it's all Go. It all compiles down to one binary. You can just flip it up into the cloud. I don't have to worry about my system. And it was training, but it wasn't training. It was giving me out gibberish word salad constantly, and no matter what I did, I wasn't able to change the idea of that. Just didn't have the juice, didn't have the parameters. Even with this, where I only trained a couple epochs, it's already way noticeably better on its own. And that's the point, sort of, is that you can do a lot of it on its own. And so that's sort of the point. But okay, yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know.